I'm Marlon Chung, Cloud Security Architect. I'm with the Emerging Technologies Group at Checkpoint. And part of our focus is to deliver on cloud-native security platforms and developer tools to aid you and benefit you as you move your code to the cloud. So within the next 15 or so minutes, you'll have a crystal view of our offerings that will help you, aid, and benefit you as you move your code to the cloud in respect to security. In terms of the agenda, the next 15 minutes, we're going to cover journeys to the cloud, automatic security as it pertains to cloud native, the 4C model, and we'll wrap up with the business impact. But before we get started, I want to share with you my experience on my foot to the cloud. I'm a former soldier in the Canadian Special Forces, spent 13 years in the Airborne Regiment. I realized at an early age I wanted to be that elite, part of that elite group. Now, realizing that, it was a long journey, lots of bumps and bruises along the way. But did we adopt security from the inception? Damn right we did. From the moment I put on that parachute, the buddy system, checking my parachute to make sure the pin was in the right position. Trusting the loadmasters to load you on the aircraft. Trusting the pilots and the logistics to get you from point A to point B. And jumping out at 10,000 feet, landing on the drop zone securely, securing the drop zone for the main body coming in. That was our mission, part of the Pathfinder group. So we adopted security from the early inceptions of our mission, our training, all the way to deployment. And that is the attitude you have to adopt today in relationship when it moves, as you move your code to the cloud. The next 50 seconds, I'm going to share with you a video that kind of captures those moments.
Go! Go! Action!
I miss those days. I get goosebumps every time I hear C-130 flying over my house or anywhere I am. But enough about my journey, my foot to the cloud. What about your journey and the cloud as you see it today? So, if you were to take a statistics before the pandemic, you probably would guess that the adoption of the cloud was probably a moderate move in terms of digital transformation. Well, the pandemic hit us, and guess what? 2 years worth of digital transformation were done in 3 months, for obvious reasons, as we went through the pandemic. What do you think? What do you think is happening here in terms of from a security perspective as organizations are adopting modern cloud? Well, number one, the cloud itself is a very complex environment, a lot of moving parts. You're prone to exposing your APIs, your tokens, and your credential leakage. And let's face it, it's a very complex environment. Now, for instance, let's look at some of the complexity within the architectures as it relates to workloads. You might have workloads in a VMware environment. You might have workloads in cluster environment. You might have workloads in serverless. So what we're doing here is giving you the tools and the development platforms allowing you to incorporate these tools in your workflow that makes sense to you, whether it's in AWS core build or any other pipeline that you're using today, right? But effectively, we're handing you these tools for you to use. What's more important? How do you manage this complexity? CloudGuard. So CloudGuard is a unified dashboard that gives you visibility into these complexity architectures. The main goal is to reduce the complexity and the risk. Because let's face it, the attack surfaces are going to increase. So with a unified dashboard allows you to have a holistic view into all these complex architectures for policy enforcement, for flow logs, for monitoring, for network analysis and network security. So CloudGuard is a perfect choice to manage this complex environment. Some of the challenges that we're seeing today, and some of you, it may be different within your organization, but let's start out with silo. And as an example, you may have highly skilled engineers that are probably looking at the same code. Well, probably that will create bottlenecks. What about human error? We're prone to make mistakes. So again, these two things are things to think about when you start, when you're in that silo sort of orbit. Now, you need to have some kind of automation or workflow to break down those silos that you're using today. Supply chain. I love this part. Let me ask you guys a question in your own mind. Can you partition your native code that you built from the ground up from third-party binaries and libraries and open source? Probably not. So guess what? The native code that you built today and the available third-party binaries and libraries that are offered to you at low cost are going to use the same permissions as your native code. And if your applications has access to your database, well, guess what? If you have a malicious third-party binaries and libraries, your database is infected. So have some kind of strategy around your supply chain, whether it's putting up guardrails, looking at vendor certifications, introducing security in the early inceptions of your SDLC, and understanding your code more importantly. Observability data, ensuring that as a security analyst, you're looking at the breadcrumbs for any malicious content. As the developers, you're looking to optimize your code, right? So again, you need to have some kind of solution, some kind of workflow that makes sense to you so you can look at this data collectively. Legacy technology. In terms of legacy technology, I like to pick on web application firewalls because the legacy firewalls are all based on binary decisions, which produces high false positives. Also, a higher management cost. So the idea here is to use some kind of technology that is preemptive AI and machine learning algorithms that falls in line with the developers as you're adopting a modern cloud at high speeds. And data integrity, ensuring that your data is reliable and secure in a secure environment. Point here is everything needs to be automated. This is the grand idea of all at Checkpoint. Right? Threat cloud. Everything that we deploy today feeds into this threat cloud environment. Not all security vendors will have their threat cloud. We have our own threat cloud, we manage our own CVEs, and therefore, everything that we do in the threat cloud environment is based on preemptive AI and machine learning engines. With millions and millions of IOCs, indicators of compromise, all about prevention in real time, no intervention from you as a user. Automatic updates. So this is the granddaddy of all when it comes to threat cloud at Checkpoint. Let's talk about automatic coordinated security. Security, automation, and everywhere. When we talk about security, it's all the things that make your apps work, such as your compute, such as your microservices, and your functions. They need to have security at the start of their deployment, which promotes a zero trust framework. Automation, not just about deployment, but the ability to enforce policy in your pipeline of choice. So your code is security-centric, and therefore, you have security in the early inceptions of your SDLC, and everywhere. So you may have workloads in one of the three vendors of your choice. However, if you decide to migrate from one vendor to another vendor, rest assured your workloads are still protected. Why? Because of CloudGuard. Visibility into all the architectures that you've deployed. and the 4C model. When we talk about the 4C model, each layer is built upon the security of the outer layer. Now, to sum this up, if you have no security in those outer layers, and this is based on defense in depth best practices, if you have no security in those layers, then you're only as strong as your weakest link. So let's transition to modern day architecture as serverless. At the heart of the serverless paradigm is function as a service. And really what this is, it's a category of services allowing you or making it you to ridiculously run code in cloud without any compute and infrastructure. So gone are the days of investing in capital expenses or investment and resources to bring your ideas to market. All you need is a good code, right? Good idea, a subscription in AWS, allowing you to bring your ideas to market. And today, we are working with AWS to provide a low-cost security platform with low management overhead that will give you the confidence to deploy your serverless environment with AWS. So for example, an organization can seamlessly deploy their serverless environment using AWS enterprise-grade Lambda security with Checkpoint. And with Checkpoint, you're extending the security footprint into scanning these functions on a continuous basis. Also, doing static and function analysis to automatically see what the best practices are for least privileges. Scanning your environment for whitelists and blocklists on your workloads without any performance hit. And last, integrating your serverless with your serverless CI/CD, such as AWS Code Build, and giving you the option to use plugins for your common languages such as Node.js, C++, Python, and so forth. So if your business can benefit or is in the process of looking at serverless deployment, AWS Lambda is the perfect choice for you. So we come back to the business impact and success. As I mentioned before, you can see the impact with all these different challenges that you may be experiencing today, from the silo, from the lack of collaboration for complex architectures, and malicious code. Moving ahead, as you adopt these best practices for, well, your use case could be time to market and competitive advantages. But most importantly, making sure that you introduce the security in the early inceptions of your SDLC. If you adopt these three principles, you're good to go, right? So in the end, as I sum up, these are some takeaways. Security is not an afterthought. Be mindful and understand your processes and the dependencies. And have a consistent formula that produces results that make sense to your workflow in your organization. Our booth is down there, 217. We can get into more deeper discussions about code to cloud and also our latest offering on CNAP. There's my LinkedIn. And I want to thank you for attending my dance today. Enjoy your day. Have fun.